What's up everyone, hope you guys doing well. In this video we're going to look into all the soldering tools needed for building your hardware startup, or if you want to get started with electronics in general, you can look into this part. We did see in our previous hardware startup series about the software and the hardware tools, and in the hardware tools we did look into all the hand tools, soldering and things like that. But in this video we're going to look everything in detail. But before we get started, I want to show you guys this. My whole table is a complete mess. I've been working on the flight controller part for the last few days, and I had to swap the parts in and out to make it work. And there's some good news that the boards are working. We'll look into that in detail in the further videos. But before we get started with the entire tools in detail, let's clean up the whole mess.
Is that better? Is it good? I think let's make it better. I think we can do much better, right? How about this? Wow, that's much better. Hopefully. Comment down below what you guys think. Which one's better, the first one or the second one? All right. So let's get the elephant out of the room. We have a new addition over here, which is a soldering rework station. It's a hot air soldering station, or we don't call it soldering iron. Let me switch it on. What it does basically is it pumps a hot air through the tube, and based on the temperature you set, it blows the hot air. So typically it's used for components which are not soldered or not easily solderable through a soldering iron. We'll look into that in depth. The basic functionality is you can set the temperature and hot air. If you set the temperature to let's say 350 to 400, it basically pumps that hot air through here. There are other different systems, one where there's a fan fixed right over to the soldering iron, which is not really efficient. This is much better, where it has the hot air pumped through a base station over here, and then the soldering iron is separated. There's also a hot bed rework station, which can also be used in this place. There has been a lot of new additions in the system, as you can see here. We'll look into these one after the other. Let's get started. All right, since this video is more about the soldering and the whole soldering process, so let's start with the soldering iron and the hot air soldering iron, what we spoke about. Let me switch it off because it makes a lot of noise. Alright, so I've switched off for now because it makes a lot of the pumping noise over the background. So basically what it does is, as I mentioned, it blows hot air through this pipe, and this is the soldering iron. Oops, it's too hot now. So what it basically does is it blows hot air, and based on the temperature it can melt the soldering wire, or the soldering paste, or whatever we use. We'll look into that as well. So there are different tips to it based on what you're trying to solder. So the one here is the biggest one, and then this is the biggest one, and this is the second biggest, and then this is the narrow tips, and this is way too narrow, as you can see over here. So this is to be used based on the type of components. If you have a really big component, you can use the bigger one, and if you have a very tiny ones where you don't have to heat around the sides of those components, you can basically use the smallest tiny ones, so you're very focused on the component which you are trying to replace. So this is it with the hot air soldering iron or soldering station. We'll move on to the soldering irons. Basically, soldering irons are used where the tip, or the surface is visible to you. In such cases, you can use soldering irons. The one I use is TS100. It's a programmable soldering iron. I would say this is really sophisticated for most of the applications. You don't have to go with this because it's really expensive. I've been using this for almost 6 years now. It's really good. The thing is it has a lot of different features it comes up with. We'll see that. but as I said, like you don't have to go with this one. Like you can just go with like any 65-watt soldering irons, which are like basically available in the market. That actually solves a lot of your or like you can use it for most of the applications, like 90-95% of the things what you're soldering, you could do that. Even in those soldering iron, there's basically different tips available like these. This is one of my friends, so I'm just like here to show this to you guys. As you can see, there's like pointy ones, there are like sharp ones, and then there's like flat ones. So based on your applications, you can swap the tip and still use the same soldering iron. So in this, you have the same option. What you could do is like the thing is, this is a proprietary design, right? Like the tip here is totally proprietary to this company, so you won't get these tips anywhere else. You have to like remove the screw here, and you can like swap the tips here. I do have one more tip, which was right here. So as you can see, there are like two different tips. So one is like the pointy one, the sharp one, and then there's like the thicker one for like bigger wires and things like that. So I use these two tips for now. There are like there are more different tips available. I don't have those to show it to you guys. So coming back to the soldering tip over here, as I said, like this is completely programmable. You can see there's a display. It is sort of like a intelligent system. If you like put it back into its place, like it sees that it hasn't been used and it turns off. So it's not like powered on all the time. It goes to sleep, and then pressing the button A will make it turn it on. Like it starts to like heat up, and you can see at what temperature it's in, and you can also like reduce the temperature if you need, or you can like I think it goes up to 450, and you can set it to whatever the temperature you need, and you can like put it back to those temperatures. And the other best part, the purpose of me getting this soldering iron is this. I can like take this out. If I'm in the field, like you don't have power supply, right? Like because we fly drones and stuff, we have like drone batteries all the time with us. So what we can do is we can actually power the soldering iron with like a LiPo batteries, like what we use for drones and stuff. I'm sorry with the tape there. So you can use like any three, I think it goes with like 2S to 6S. So most of the drones what we fly in the field are typically 3S, or if you like fly tiny ones like Cinewoop or something, it will go like 1S or something. But most of the drones what you use, you can like use that battery to power the soldering iron. Let me show that. There's a cable which comes with the soldering iron. It has a XT60 connector, which again like a standard with a lot of the lithium polymer batteries, and then you plug it in, and I think the battery is dead, I guess, in this one. My bad. Yeah, there you go. So once you power it on, you can see the display, and it also has this rotation thing, like you can keep it this way if you're right-handed or left-handed, and you can like switch the display switches based on that. So right now you can use it with a lithium polymer battery, and it's totally off the grid. Like you don't need like power supply, which basically happens when you're like repairing drones in the field. So this is one of the good things what I use it for. But apart from that, there's like as I said, you can program it to different temperatures, and also like different applications. There are like different power settings to it. You can use it for whatever you need. So these are the two soldering stations what I use. It's pretty hot. Let me allow it to cool down. And coming to the feeders, or like the soldering stand, basically this is what I've been using. This is like a new addition again in the system. What I used to use was like just a basic stand, wherein like you drop the soldering iron into it, and then like it sticks, and it's like safer from the soldering iron, which is like really hot, which goes to around like 400 degrees. So you cannot like drop it on these silicone mat or the rubber mat. It might like burn any of the stuff nearby. I can like show you the example what I did with that mistake here. Not sure you can see it. See, I left the soldering iron on the wire of the soldering cable itself, and then it melted. It's not safe to do this thing. So it's always safer to like put it on a soldering stand. And this is what I've been using before, but now I've like upgraded to the next version, which is more, again, sophisticated, which is not needed. But this is what I wanted, and this is what I use. So what it has is like, one is the stand, basic thing. You can like drop your soldering iron into it. And the second part is the feeder. This is what I actually needed, because when I used to solder, this is what I've been doing, right? Like I keep the iron, and then like I have to take the soldering wire, and then like it moves the wire, and then it rolls off, and then it's not in the right place to like feed the wire. So what I do is like in the feeder, I'd be able to like pull the wire to the required length, and I can like leave it right there, and then like pull it whenever I need. If I'm done, like I can roll it back, and it should be good. It also has like the sponge for cleaning the tip. You need to add water here. It's pretty dry right now. That's one of the soldering feeder I use. The other set is also the clamps, I would say. Like it also has the soldering stand, soldering iron stand. And this one comes up with like the clips, alligator clips, and the lens. So if I'm like soldering certain tiny components and I need to magnify and see what I'm doing, I'll be able to like clamp the board or wires or something here, and then I'd be able to like see it through and do the rework and things like that. So this is another stand. I think there are like other different ones available in the market. You can look into that based on what you're working with. And moving on to the next one, this is like the soldering tip iron cleaner. So it's basically meant for like, it's made of brass. This is like pretty old. I've been using this for like 4 or 5 years now, and this is the newest one. I haven't used yet, but I'm still using the old one. So it's made of brass, and the thing is like whenever you do the soldering, you need to like clean up, because like a lot of flux and the oxidation part, right? Like the tip gets oxidized a lot of the time, and then you might have to like clean it. So this is sort of like a brush for the soldering tip. You do not use like a sanding paper or like file or something like that. It would damage the tip. This is the recommended method to be using for like cleaning the tip. All right, so now instead of moving on to the rest of the parts where the soldering process is done, let's move on to the jig or fixtures, because this is what will be mounting the components or boards or anything, and we'll be like soldering with the soldering wire and the tin, flux, and things like that. So let's get to the fixture first, and then like we'll move on to the other. So fixture is basically to hold the board or like the parts or whatever you're using. The one which I showed was the alligator clip, right? Like you can hold the wires or things like that. Or if you have like a board, then I would recommend like using the fixture. And there's also another type of fixture wherein like you can clamp the board. If it is like a tiny ones, you can use this. I use like both. Like the IMU board was done on this one, which has like much better clamping, and this one exposes sort of like the entire area. Let me get a board. So the flight controller, right? Like this is what I've been reworking on this one. So I can like push it where I need to, and then like clamp this one here, and now it's holding the board tight. So I don't have to worry about like the board moving or anything. I'd be able to like use the soldering iron, or like if it's a hot air blow, so I can like use it where I need to point. So that would get the job done. Like you don't have to worry about like the board moving around when you're like soldering or doing any rework process. I've also repaired this crystal oscillator here. Like, I'm not sure if it's getting focused. Yeah, there you go. So this was repaired through the hot air rework station. And you can also like solder components and stuff like that. So this is the fixture, and you can put it onto a silicone mat. The blue one, what you see here, is the silicone ESD safe mat. So coming to the topic of ESD, it's electrostatic discharge. Basically, in the winter, you might have seen or observed, like when you touch the door knobs or door handles, you will get the shock, right? Like that's the static electricity. So that is actually dangerous to these boards. When I'm using the PCBs or electronic boards, it's recommended to wear gloves which are ESD safe. There are like the cloth material based ESD safe gloves which you can use. We can get into that in depth in a different video if needed. It's a whole new topic. So, all right, let's move on to the next, which is soldering wires. So there are like different soldering wires. Right here, you can see I'm already using like 3 different ones. There are like so many different types of soldering wires based on the composition, thickness, and so on. Usually, most of the hobby grade or like any sort of like process involves like leaded solder wires. There are also lead-free solder wires, but it has its own pros and cons. Lead-free is good for environment, but basically it's really difficult to like solder with lead-free ones. And the leaded ones are like much easier to solder, so most of them use like leaded ones. The solder wire composition is like typically would be 60-40, 60-10, and 40 leaded, if I'm correct. Comment down below if I'm wrong, like I haven't checked the composition much here. There are also like resin and rosin compositions, so you can look into that. It basically what the solder wire is get mixed with like some sort of flux. So that will aid in like soldering the process. The solder wire comes with its own flux in the like solder wire, but we might also in some cases use the flux externally also. In this case, you can see here we have like a flux in the syringes. So this is like a flux paste. So you can squeeze in on the component, and then as you heat either through the soldering wire or like the hot air, this will sort of like clean up the surface and actually aid in like the soldering process. So it speeds up and makes the soldering better. So this is one type, which is the flux paste. And I also have like a liquid flux, which I also use in certain cases, depending on the application and the process, what you use. And there's also, we have like the soldering, the liquid one is also in the syringe here. So the flux and the paste, flux paste and flux liquid are both here. And we also have like a solder paste, which is also mixed with certain flux. So in this case, you don't have to like use any external flux. In this case, most of the flux mixed with this solder paste would be much helpful. In case you need a little more, you can like apply the external flux as well. So this is the paste over here, and you also get the paste in the box, and you can like transfer to the syringes. So these are the process for soldering, right? And once you do, the flux again has its own pros and cons. The pro is that, as I mentioned, it cleans up the surface and makes the soldering better. But at the same time, it also makes the whole thing dirty. Like, I'm not sure this is actually cleaned, but you can see in certain cases, I'm not able to show that here, but you can see it makes a lot of residues on the board, which might be not safe for the electronic board in general, because it may short some leads or components and can create arcs and actually damage the components. So you have to like clean the board before it's like powered. So one is the IPA or alcohol, which most of them use here. It's mostly like a pure 99%. Here it says like 99.9% pure alcohol. And I also certain times use like the cleaning solvent, which is like a spray. And I can show you that. So it's basically like if you had to like clean some of the components here, you can like spray it and use a brush to clean up the entire surface. So what I basically use is like these type of brushes. And the thing is, like with the IPA, it usually evaporates, so you have to be like ready with the spray, and then like you might have to clean it. In some cases, a lot of people actually dip the board in a alcohol solution in a tray, which is also doable, as long as you know the thing is like certain components are not safe for cleaning, right? Like you have to make sure like the components on the board, what you have, is meant for cleaning, and you can do that. If it's not, you're unsure, in certain cases, like there are components like inductors, which are not inductors, they're like certain components which are like barometers and things like that, which are not meant for cleaning. So you have to be sure about that. And these are the different brushes I use for cleaning, depending on like the tiny components. If there are like certain gaps in the component leads or something, I might have to like squeeze a tiny brush. So this is much safer. And we also have like a hard brush. This is like much more brittle than the soft brushes here. So this is more of an after cleaning. Like if there are certain wires, or not wires, like thread or like lint or dust or anything, you can use this for cleaning those stuff. So this is more of a hard brush for removing like foreign object debris, which are called like FODs. So that is something you can also use. And then we have certain assisting tools or like guiding tools, which are like tweezers. The basic functionality is to like hold the part in certain cases. Let me open this up. So you can see there are like multiple components here, and if I have to solder onto this board, and it's like very difficult to hold this component, right? Like if it is a big one, you can, but it's again not safe to like hold the components because ESD. These are like ESD safe tweezers. So you can use these components to like hold, you can use these tweezers to hold the components, and you can see here it's quite easier to hold it, and you can see all the pads. And if you need to solder, this typically has the pads at the bottom of the component. Not sure if it's getting focused. Yeah. So as you can see here, the pads of the component is at the bottom. So you might have difficulty to solder with the soldering iron. That's where you would use a hot air soldering station. So you can place it on the board, and let's say you're just placing it here, and you apply the flux, the soldering paste and flux, and then like blow hot air over it, and you should be good to go. I can like add a clip over on the end. You can like watch it for better idea. This is more of a showing things here, like I'm not doing any rework as of now. So there are like different tweezers to hold. So these three are like the sharp ones based on the type of component. You can use these. These three are like very similar. And then we have like a curve sharp tool here, as you can see. So this one can be used for like at an angle if you had to hold at the board like this, either like holding the component like this on top or from the side like this. So depending on the usage, you can go with that. And if you are like soldering thick wires or something, you might have seen in my previous video about like the building of the drone, right? Like it has all these motor wires and stuff like that. You may need like a slightly flat tweezers to hold the wire and then solder it. So these can be used for that as well. And then we have like one of the cleaning process we saw was the IPA or alcohol. If it is like a soldering of wire, which we did recently, right? Like we showed this soldering wire. So in that case, if you have like you need to remove the solder or something, desoldering. So this is like the desoldering pump. So what you basically have to do with this is like you need to press this. It creates an air. It's basically an air pump. So you press it, and where you need to like remove the solder, you can hold it, and then like wherever the solder is, you press this, and then it sucks the solder out of it. And then once you press it, it pushes back the solder ball. So this is another necessary tool if you're like into if you had to like desolder and do other stuff. The other parts are basically wire cutters and clippers. So this is wire cutter if you're like just cutting wires, so that's not a big deal. And these are like stripper, like if you had to strip the insulation of a wire, right, like to solder or something on this side, let's say. So you have like different wire dimensions over here, and you can insert to the right one. This here. That. So as you can see here, I can like strip the wire and strip the insulation so that it exposes the wire. I can like use it for soldering. And then I also have a this is like an SMD tester. Basically, it's meant for like measuring the component values. If you have resistors or capacitor unknown, not on the board, you cannot measure it on the board because a lot of the components are like in circuit, like in series or parallel, so your value gets affected on the board. So this is meant for testing the individual components, and you have like different options over here. Either you can like set it to scan and measure it, or you can like set it to the specific component. If you know like it's a resistor or capacitor, you can measure automatically through this. And there's like the diodes you can measure, and you can also measure capacitors and so on. Or you can like just set it to scan, and it should also be able to measure it. All right, and that's it, I guess. There's one which is like the aluminum foil or tape. So this is basically for masking. This is really a handy tool, I would say. You can either use a scissor, or it's like a like a paper. You can tear it off. And the purpose of using this is to like the masking of the board, right? Like if you have certain component which you're trying to remove or like resolder or something. Like for example, if you see here, I removed a component, so I can use it over to that space, and I can just expose that part so that the heating of the other components is avoided. So this would like reheating or like applying too much of heat to certain components is not safe. So if you're like reworking on certain part, you can actually mask it, and then like you can use it for soldering or desoldering, and once you're done, you can like take this off. And again, like when you do that, there are like gum residues which you have to use with the spray again and then clean it off. All right, that's it for today. I hope you guys had fun seeing all the tools and stuff. Again, this is more of my opinion of what I've been using these for over the years. I've been doing soldering for like last 10 years. And this is sort of like just my experience I'm sharing. It's not the right way or the recommended way in most scenarios. In most cases, like you could just go off with like standard tools. Like as I said, you don't need like a really expensive soldering irons like this. You get like a 65-watt soldering irons for cheaper, and you can get the job done. In specific cases, you need like all these specific tools to get the job done. You could just like use a soldering wire and soldering iron, and you should be good to go. If you have any questions, comment down below. As always, thanks for watching. Have a nice week.